Hi, my name's Theet. In this video I'd like to talk about, amongst all the obvious differences between PC, fantasy gaming, MMOs, and tabletop wargaming, say Warhammer, both of which I've played competitively at various points. There's something particularly with the recent state of affairs that has struck me as being very, very similar to both of them, and that is the outlay of time needed that can sometimes seem almost wasted, particularly if you're a competitive player, whenever there's a new edition or expansion of the game. And because, you know, I think over the last few months, depending on which country you're in, will depend on how much of a lockdown there's been, how much is still going on, and to what extent you may have been affected by it. If you're a PC gamer, it is very, very likely you've not been negatively affected by it at all. May have even been enhanced. If normally you would have a long commute to and from work, and now you're working at home, you may save on that. That might give you extra gaming time. Who knows? But certainly, if you're looking, like I used to play World of Warcraft reasonably competitively, and you may be looking forward towards the next expansion. You may even be in the beta at the moment, having a bash about on that. Very, very different to if you're, say, a Warhammer player, where you may not have been able to have played a game for many months now because of social distancing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you'd been out of the hobby. We've just had a major new edition of Warhammer 40k, which is the sci-fi version of the tabletop war game, come out recently, and it's sold out in minutes. It was quite embarrassing for the company, really. And very, very popular indeed. And that's, of course, because there's certain aspects of the hobby, just like with an MMO, you have to put things into it. You're building up your groundwork. So in tabletop gaming, it's fairly obvious. You have to assemble the models, you have to paint the models. I hate doing both of these. But I have recently been using the contrast paints to do a very, very quick job on them, and I'm actually making real progress now. I'm looking at a situation where, at the moment, I've painted like 2 units for my Ossiarch Bone Reapers army. At the end of this week, I'll have all 2,000 points ready. I recently painted up for 40k 2,000 points of Death Guard. Again, in about assembled and painted in about 2 weeks. So I'd spent most of the lockdown not really doing anything, although I didn't have less work to do. I didn't really save that much anyway in time, but nonetheless I wasn't playing as much, so I should have used that time to paint and assemble, and I wasn't doing. Now I am doing. But you have a similar thing with MMOs as well, because when you're playing something like World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Online or Star Wars: The Old Republic or any of the other games you may be playing, there's playing the part of the game that you really enjoy, which may be the raiding, or it may be PvP, arenas, battlegrounds, whatever it happens to be, maybe mythic dungeons. Whatever it is, you have to do other parts of the game as well, which some people might regard as a grind or chores, aspects to the game to build up your character, to build up resources, in order to play competitively the part of the game you really want to play. And even if you're not playing that competitively, there's still a certain amount of effort has to be put in, time and effort, in order to get your character ready for whatever type of content that you will be doing, even if it's just as simple as completing the quests or leveling up. And it also strikes me, so we've got a situation where in Warhammer 40k we've just had a new edition launch, and the way it works with Warhammer is you have your main rules for the game, which are now out for the 9th edition of 40k. But then for your individual armies, you have what they call a codex, which has your special rules in it. Now, all the codices, because I refuse to say codexes, in all honesty, all the codices are for 8th edition. And although they sort of work, they're not designed for 9th edition. So, and the armies that get their 9th edition ones first will feel more rounded more early on. So there are armies at the moment who will be playing 9th edition rules, but with 8th edition army rules. Some of whom will have gained out of it and they'll be absolutely fine. So, you know, I've recently painted my Death Guard army. I think they've come out of it okay. Now, here's the thing. I hate painting and I'm very bad at painting. Because I hate it, I don't put the time in to learn to become better. I'm not one of those who goes, oh, I wish I could paint like that. I know I don't try, don't want to do it quickly. But I've commissioned the odd army. So at the moment I have a Harlequins army for 40k on commission, which has obviously taken some time because of everything. When I get that, now at the time I commissioned it, it was 8th edition. I didn't really know anything about 9th edition. By the time I get it, I will. Now, it might well have been that Harlequins would have done really badly and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a very weak army. Now, that, as it happens, that is not the case. But it easily could have been. There are winners and losers with a new edition. And even when the codices start to come out, there will still be winners and losers from a competitive point of view. And sometimes it is sort, I would say, if you're not playing very competitively, if you're just sort of playing more casually in your local gaming group, you can still really make a fist of it, but there are still going to be matchups where there is a significant advantage to one player. Quite a lot of the time I would argue if you're playing in just a local club, not with tournament players, if there is such a mismatch, it is very likely to be your choice of units that you've taken more than just the army. But there are certain aspects of the army that are inherently strong and therefore easy, more forgiving to play with, and there are other ones where you'd have to work at it more to be competitive. And the same thing is true of MMOs, of course. You have your, in that case, your classes. You choose your particular class and spec. And there have been times, you know, I've been through a number of expansions of World of Warcraft, for example, playing relative near, not world beating raiding, but fairly top tier raiding, mythic raiding as it would be called these days. And cutting edge raiding for quite a few years. And in a situation like that, certain classes and specs would be winners when a new expansion came out, or even a new raid tier came out, and some would be losers. And you would look at some, and some you would just say, right, that you are going to have to work very, very hard to be competitive with this class or spec. And I have a very weird, and I don't understand, distinction between MMO playing, fantasy role playing on a PC, and with Warhammer on the tabletop. Because in Warhammer, for both the fantasy version, which is Age of Sigmar now, and 40k, it's actually a bit of an eye-opener for 40k. See, I like all the armies and I want to collect all the armies. So I'm one of these typical gamers that actually has piles and piles of unassembled models, because I get the models, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. But because I hate assembling them, they don't get assembled. So I am actually really putting effort into doing that now. But I want all the armies. I haven't really thought ahead as to whether I've got space for all the armies, because I suspect not. But I want to play all of them. I want to be able to flit between them. So I'll never really specialise in any one. So, and unless you do that, I think you're not going to become a really good tournament player anyway. But that's the way of it. Whereas for PC gaming, I tend to focus on one like World of Warcraft. It was always Paladin for me, particularly Retribution Paladin. But it was always Paladin. Although I played others as well, and I would enjoy doing it on a bit of a casual basis, I would never see myself as maining or playing competitively throughout the whole expansion, much less for years and years. A different class. They didn't appeal to me. I got bored of them quickly. I would play them for a few months, maybe in some sort of casual raids, but I would get bored of them. And the same sort of thing is true of the other role-playing games I play on the PC. So in Elder Scrolls Online, I played various classes, but I always come back to the Templar. You know, in Star Wars: The Old Republic, again, I've tried playing the different ones, but at the end of the day, dual-wielding lightsaber, you know, the Sith warrior for the dark side and the Jedi Knight for the light side. I'll always come back to those. You know, Baldur's Gate, I play on my own, but I create a party of 6. I always take at least 2 paladins. My preferred makeup has 3 different paladins in it. And, you know, and I just keep reverting back to type. I don't like, for some reason, the variety. I don't like to flip between them on a computer game, and I don't know why that is. Whereas I do on tabletop gaming. And there are certain pros and cons to it. Obviously, if you do like flitting between different ones, you have to work quite hard each time to become good enough on each one. But then when you've got a new edition or new expansion coming out, See, the problem for me is when I was playing competitively, because I always played Paladin, a Retribution Paladin, which sometimes was okay and sometimes was not. You just feel that you're stuck. Whereas with another player, they'll play a particular class and then a new expansion will come out and they go, oh, that's, you know, trash tier now, or this one's going to be really strong for this. And they'll just change. They'll just change over to it. There is still a lot of investment they have to do because they have to get that character up. But do you know what? At the start of an expansion, just like the start of a new edition, you just start from scratch anyway. Everyone's in the same boat. You just build it up from that point. And you do that. And some players will do that. Whereas I always felt, well, no, I wouldn't enjoy playing the other ones enough. So I'm just going to stick to this one and I'm just going to have to work harder to make it competitive. Whereas with Warhammer, a new edition comes out and if a particular army, and I'm just thinking, do you know what, I just lose every time. And it may be my fault because it doesn't suit my play style perhaps, because that can be another element. Sometimes you can just be using an army incorrectly because you have a particular play style and it doesn't suit it. So of course you're going to use it incorrectly. But you know, if you are someone like me and tabletop where I actually enjoy playing all of them anyway, you'll just naturally gravitate towards your favourite ones being the ones that best suit your play style. Because you flit around, you get to try the different ones. And you'll play more often with the ones that just naturally, you know, suit you. Because a particular army's character can change over time quite a lot. You know, in Warhammer, whether it be fantasy or 40k, you can have armies where, you know, one edition, they might be a full-blooded rush forward type army. Another one, they could be hang back or be sneaky move round or sit back and shoot type army. You know, the general way an army plays can be very different from one edition to the next. The strengths and weaknesses of an army can change from one edition to the next as the rules change, as the objectives of the game change. And you can have the same thing with classes in a PC gaming as well. And I just find it actually quite stark. Just, you know, these two different gaming systems are completely different because tabletop, you play with fewer players, but you have that human contact and you know, and from that point of view, it's a bit more sociable. PC gaming is sociable in a different way because you're playing with more people, but it's remotely. You know, easier to find more people to group with as well. Whereas here where you are, where I happen to live, there's not a lot of competitive players. So playing these sort of tournament style games, and if I want to get back into tournaments, which I would like to when we don't have to distance so much, it will be difficult for me to get the practice games because there's not the opponents. Whereas when I used to play Warhammer tournament games before World of Warcraft got its claws into me, I lived in a place where there were opponents that I could practice with that were also tournament players, and that helped. So there are always downsides to both, but what I think is obvious for everyone is tabletop gaming and PC gaming are all very, very different beasts. You can enjoy both, but they are completely different beasts. But the one aspect that is very, very much the same is if you are the sort of person, as I am for PC gaming, but not tabletop, that really has a love for a particular class or army, depending on what you're talking about. When a new edition comes around or a new expansion, you can be left high and dry. You can be left high and dry. So I just thought that was a curious little thing there. But let me know your thoughts anyway in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And until next time, I'll see you later.